Really what I want to focus on when I teach people is how to be the exception, how to not settle for what doesn't satisfy, how to rise above the stories that you believe, and how to rewrite the narrative that does no longer serve you. I teach people to do that by being honest, being open, being healthy, being gentle, being courageous, and being authentic. Some of the things we've lost throughout our life. So I love to say, what doesn't serve you anymore and how can you rewrite it? By what you say about yourself, by recognizing your best side is not right here, it's hopefully your inside.
Welcome to HerCsuite Radio for women leaders on the move. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou, and I'm also the founder of HerCsuite. Every week, I bring you inspirational stories and valuable insights to help you in the arc of your life and your career. At HerCsuite, we are making it easier for women to meet, engage, and thrive in meaningful ways in less time because your schedules are demanding and you have to put yourself first, but you might not feel like you have the momentum and time to do so. And that's why we've created turnkey speaker programs. And my guest today is going to be a keynote speaker in May. Annie Meehan is a professional keynote speaker that inspires, educates, and activates her audiences with a clear message that spurs listeners to break counterproductive patterns and be the exception. As a widely embraced international speaker, she has been a catalyst in inspiring countless organizations to choose to soar above the status quo. As an expert in living an exceptional life, Annie encourages her audiences to remove any barriers preventing them from achieving their goals. Her myriad of testimonials reveal the wow factor that she creates at every presentation, which in turn catapults participants to adopt the practical tools she champions for more impactful lives, both professionally and personally. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation with Annie, so let's get started now. Annie, I'm so excited to welcome you to HerCsuite Radio today. Thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. I love the name, and I'm all about being and teaching and pouring into people as they listen.
And I have had an amazing time of getting to know you off camera, off this interview, and having you in our community. But I would love for you to share a little bit for our listeners to understand. You've had an incredible arc. You've got lots of books, 8 books that you've written. Talk a little bit about what inspires you to do all the things that you're doing and how we got to this moment today.
It's kind of funny as you ask me that question, Natalie, what pops in my head, which isn't always my answer, is all the people that thought I couldn't. And I'm not saying that's the reason to do it, but when you struggle to know how to read, when people think you have a learning disability, when they encourage you not to go to college, when they say no one wants to follow you, no one wants to read what you write, it's kind of fuel for me. Like what I hear as I've learned to reframe is, I dare you. And I go, okay, what else can I do? So really growing up in a really dysfunctional family, then working and climbing the corporate ladder in the financial service, the institutional side of financial services, which is very male dominated, but getting 5 promotions in the 9 years. At 30, a bank bought us and I was able to retire for a little bit, raise our 3 kids, and then bought my first gym in a small town. Started really hearing how people talk to themselves, men and women, but particularly women, then built a second gym in a big city. And just realizing, what if I believe my words is as powerful as I know them to be, spoken and written? And so people just started asking me, can you speak here? Will you coach me? Can you write a book? And I was like, no. Yes, I can. Just kidding. No, yes, I can. And so I love a challenge. So I have one online course. I'm doing another. I have a membership group start. I'm always what's next. And the behind the what's next is who can I serve that feels like I used to feel about myself? Because I don't want anyone to feel it.
So many things are coming into my mind, but one thing I just heard, and I know you know Brendan Burchard, he's got this new thing called Growth Day. He started out talking to 1,000 people. I think this is going to resonate with you. And he said to the audience, how many of you walked into this room and immediately started thinking of things that you could do to improve the room? And I feel like you're one of those people because I'm one of those people. I notice these things and I'm like, oh, well, this could be done differently and this could be done differently. And it turned out of 1,000 people, only 11 said yes. And so the things that you're describing is your ability to see beyond what is right in front of you, to see beyond the obvious and to imagine what's possible. And I think that's one of the things that so many, and I'm going to talk about women because that's our majority of the people that listen to this show. We love our allies. So don't you listen to. But what do you find in the work that you're doing that the possibilities, you're seeing beyond, you're seeing all the things? What do you see that is really one of those things that women just don't even see the possibilities?
So again, so many answers and thoughts. First, I thought you were going to say 11 people didn't, because that's how my mind goes. And I have to remind myself, never assume that other people have the DNA that I have. Like my husband's like, people don't always get that you're joking a lot and that you are moved on to the next thing. You're very fast thinker, very fast responder. So that's fascinating. Only 11 did. That's amazing. One thing I think about what's coming to me in this moment is that I think people, what we look for, will always find, always find. In the worst and the best of circumstances, what we look for, we find. So I don't think people are as cautious and protective about their eyes and their ears as I wish they were, because I listen to uplifting. I believe in the good news. I know there's amazing people in the world. I know there's a lot of collaborators. We're not in competition. How can I help you? How can me helping you help someone else? It's not a competition. And so one of my big visions is that how can we take what's good and make it better always? But what can I do to protect myself from being dragged down? Because a lot of times I'll engage with people and the first thing they'll say is, oh, the world's a mess, or oh, so much. And I'm like, wow, I'm fully not aware of that. Very intentionally not aware of that. I meet the most amazing people. I travel all over the world. I love my work. I love the people I meet. And so, Natalie, I think that I don't think it's a judgment. I think it's an innovation of vision in my mind, is that when I walk into a room, when I meet an individual, I'm like, well, if you just do tweak these 3 things, like your business could soar, or you could do this. So that's fascinating to me, only 11 people. And that's one thing I kind of had to learn when I started professionally speaking, is I assumed, my mistake, that everyone in the room thought like me, knew what I knew, thought about assessment, thought about personal development, was reading, was seeking, that was a seeker. And one thing I've learned is a lot of us settle for status quo because we don't know we deserve better. We don't know there is better. We don't know we deserve it. And we don't know how to get to it. So that's one of my things, is to help people broaden their eyes and their perspective, their vision on what is possible for their life, for their career, for their relationships. You don't just have to be married. You don't have to just stay at a job. You can love your work. You can love your relationships. And there are things that we can do to implement that. So yeah, I'm always, what else? What next?
And I think we share that glass overflowing. Like I always think of the glass is overflowing and abundance and things like that. Although I have been also sometimes, and it's easy to fall into self-doubt. You can have scarcity. I was recently reminded by one of our circle chairs, Lori Harris, who said, you shift what you just said and think abundance. And so we don't even realize, even if we talk about this stuff.
Yes.
And I'm super able to talk about it with other women. Like if someone I'm talking to, I think about 3 things, like you said. I'm thinking, who can I connect you to? What can I do to help you? Da, da, da. But when it comes to me, I'm like, oh, well. And so it's like, no, flip the switch, right? So I love this one thing that you told me about how to start your day. Can you talk about that and like how you talk to yourself? I think this is so powerful.
Yes. And I will tell you that in 1 second. I just want to say I was at a women's conference, 150 women business owners this week. And one of the presenters go, unfortunately, you guys get to hear from me this afternoon again. And it just hurt my heart. And so I went up to her. And one thing I always want to say when we give feedback is ask permission. So I just said, hey, can I just give you a little tweaking on something you said? She said, sure. And I said, you said, unfortunately, we have to hear from you again. And you are brilliant and beautiful. And I would love for you to reframe that and say, luckily, you have the permission. You have the privilege of hearing from me again. So yes, Natalie, not every day. And I don't do it perfectly either. But man, I have worked really hard because I spent the first 20 years of my life not only wanting to be like someone else, wanting to be anyone else than myself. And so I have had to learn, how do I tweak that? And so one of the things I tongue in cheek, don't always do, but say sincerely to help other people reflect is I get up and I look in the mirror and I think, oh my gosh, you are so amazing. Oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. oh my gosh, how lucky the people that get to hang out and meet you today. And when I say that to audiences, some laugh, some look appalled. Then I follow it up with another question that usually leads to dead silence. And I ask, what did you say about yourself when you looked in the mirror this morning? We are so dang hard on ourselves. And when I do diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging talks, my first question I ask is, do you like you? Because there's always going to be people that point at us, judge us, criticize. You're too much noise. You're not enough noise. You're too tall. You're too short. You talk too much. You don't talk enough. But if we learn to like ourselves, what they think will matter so much less. And also, ego gets in the way for those of us that are speakers and writers and influencers. And we think, oh my gosh, I want everyone to like me. Oh my gosh. But that's about us. And what I realized is, what if I have something to teach? And whether people like me or not is irrelevant. I'm not doing it to be liked. I really do my work every day in all that I do, whether I'm posting or blogging or speaking or writing, to get you to like you more, not to love me. And those were big shifts in my life, but they're significant shifts that make me more happy and joy-filled and worry less about what other people think.
In today's world, it's really hard. And especially, and I'm going to, say that on LinkedIn, it used to be a professional network. It is very much like, to me, very much like Facebook today. It's very much about personal accomplishment, and it can hit people like, I'm not this, I'm not that. So what do you tell women to protect that sanctity of feeling value to yourself? Because I find myself, I look at it and some days I'm like, oh, I'm so glad for you. And then other days I'm like, I feel like a little bit sad that I'm not traveling more, or I'm not doing more things for, personal reasons I can't. So what do you tell women to kind of protect that?
I mean, so many things. What comes to the top of my mind, because people will just be like, say to me, you're so successful and you've written 8 books. And I'm like, let me just clarify for you to help you out. For one thing, I always have a coach when I write books because I need a lot of help because I have dyslexia, ADHD, and my GED. And so I say, don't compare, because where you're blessed, maybe I'm not. And what I'm gifted at, maybe you're not. And a friend of mine who had passed, he was a mentor of mine along the way. He wrote about DNA, about what are our natural giftings that come so easy for us and others. And trust me, Natalie, I'm not saying I don't have days that I look at other speakers and go, well, wait a minute. I thought I was up for that one and they got it. Or, oh my gosh, look at them. They're just flying high. And in fact, ironically, I picked up a friend from the airport. I was in a town he was in and I could pick him up. So I just did. And as soon as I picked him up, I just think he's amazing. I think he's super talented, gifted speaker and kind person. And within 5 minutes of being in the car, he was telling me about another speaker that he looked at. And I was thinking, we never arrive in this business. There's always someone that has it higher. And I guess for me, especially when I get interviewed, often lately, people will ask me about success as a speaker and a writer. And I always say, and this is really true to my core, I do love my work so much and I love what I get to do. But success for me personally is that I never thought I'd get married. I don't know if I didn't think I was worthy of having a husband or couldn't imagine a healthy, committed relationship. And I'm 31 years into my relationship with my husband. And that is success for me. And I like him and he likes me. Like all that other stuff is bonus. So I always try to help people have perspective. Many people have really amazing parents and children and all these different things. And sometimes we're so busy at looking at what someone else has, we lose sight. It goes back to what we look for, we see, right? The other thing is that I do think LinkedIn's different than Facebook. For me, at least, I do get a decent amount of business off it. But I want people to think not about how I look or what I'm doing, but am I kind to individuals? Am I highlighting and elevating other people as I climb? I'm a huge believer in collaboration over competition. And I have opened my home and my heart and my pay stubs to show people what's possible in this business and how I did it. And it's not magic and I didn't get lucky. I work really hard at it every day. But yeah, my heart hurts when people compare. And so I'm always like, what's great about you? Kindness. It's not always about how we look or also perception's reality. In fact, just in the last week, I've talked to 3 speakers that I thought were like shining stars and they're posting all over it. And they're like, oh, I don't have any business. And I'm like, what? Because it looks like online but perception's reality. So we have to sometimes check. I remember about a year ago, I had a speaker friend and we were at a conference speaking together. And I said, man, you are killing it. You are going everywhere. You're doing all this stuff. He had just posted he was going to be in 12 cities. And he said, oh, I'm not speaking in any. I'm just taking my wife on vacation. And so perception is reality. And he didn't say speaking. He said, this is where I'll be. But it was a fascinating thing to think about. Just because you see something, that doesn't make it real. So I'm pretty intentional about always having my own goals, my own benchmarks. Because if I start chasing yours, Natalie, I'm probably going to be disappointed. But if I have my own, this is where I want to speak. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to ask for what I want. And sometimes it will come and sometimes it won't. But comparison steals. They say comparison is the thief of all joy. So when I think I have a good marriage, or I think my hair looks good, or I'm not blinking too much, or whatever my weird thing is for the day, and then I look at you, I can go, oh gosh, Natalie does it better. She looks more poised. She has a better smile. Whatever it is. So I have to remind myself, I'm not here to compare. I'm not here to compete. I'm here to collaborate and climb to help other people rise with me, right? Whether that's in their self-talk, or that's in their business, or that's in their relationships, that it helps me. And I'm a big talker to myself, like all the time. Like, Annie, you're kind of getting out of control. Annie, that's kind of weird. Annie, you're competing. Stop competing. Just be a collaborator. Good for them. Celebrate their wins. But it is hard. I'm not saying this is easy, Natalie. I've been there too. I'm better at it. I'm definitely better at it and more aware of it quickly to stop it. But it still can happen, right? I mean, there's a client I've been wanting to speak for 8 years. And I've had a lot of friends get invited to speak for that organization. I'm disappointed, but I'm like, when the time is right, they will find me and I will have the perfect message for them. So I try to keep it in check as best possible.
I want to talk about something that you said about collaborating and co-collaborating, because I really believe that there's enough room at the table for all women. And even in HerCsuite, we have many speakers, as you know. We have businesses that are thriving together, and there's room at the table for everybody. And when we help one, we raise the tide. I really believe that. And I was asking that question because I think so many people have a hard time with doubt and thinking about themselves and, oh, I'm not this and I'm not that. And so I'm really glad that you share that for our listeners so they know that, first of all, they're not alone, but also to embrace the fact that we're the results of the people we surround ourselves with. And you got to be around people like yourself that are like powerhouse lifter-uppers. It's like positivity, gratitude, kindness. And if you have people in your life that aren't doing that for you, it's hard to make the shift. But afterwards, you'll feel so happy and lifted. What can you tell from all the things that you've experienced? I know that you face some of those things. What is something that someone can be reminded of? It's scary to make those choices, but then on the other side, you have joy.
I have a story. It's not ideal about women, but it's a true story. And that is that when I became a professional speaker, so I always identify I've been speaking for about 20 years, but 11 years professionally. The difference between public and professional is public, I spoke to share my story and I did it for free. Professional, I get paid to do my work. But I joined the National Speakers Association. At that time, I lived in Minnesota. And so I joined. And so one by one, I asked women, hey, Natalie, will you be in a mastermind with me? Hey, Susie, will you be? And I went one-to-one, sometimes by phone call, email, and face-to-face, asking people. And they all said no to me. Okay. So one thing I encourage you is to ask people to join you. But the final one that said no to me, that hurt me deeply, and it's been 12 years, I'm over the pain of it, but I'm never unaware of what happened. And it maybe makes me even more inclusive, is she wrote me a letter, an email stating that I wasn't good enough, that I was new and I should hang out with people like me. And maybe I'll speak for a chicken dinner, but I'm never going to make money at this business and blah, blah, blah. And it was rushing to my spirit. It was like, you belong with your people. You're new. Now, she never asked me how much I had spoken or where I'd spoken or what I'd done. And I was new to getting paid and I was new to that organization. But I remember that day my husband came home and he said, what's going on? I said, I'm so bummed. Like, I literally have asked 40 women and they've all said no to me. Nobody knew me, but I say yes to everybody. So I don't care if you know me or not. And he said, well, ask a guy. And to be honest with you, Natalie, I was a little discouraged in that because I thought, I don't want to rise with a guy. And I love men. I just wanted to rise with women. I just wanted to pour into them and let them pour into me and rise together. And because I don't have necessarily a nurturing mother that's able to give me that. The other day, someone asked me to mentor them, and I'm like, I'm still looking for a mentor and a mother as much as I'm successful. And I do mentor people. But anyway, he said, just ask a guy. And I asked one guy and he goes, well, who else is in it? And I go, well, nobody. And he goes, well, if you get some other people. And then I asked another guy, and this guy had been a speaker for 20 years professionally. And he said, sure, why not? I got things to learn from you and you got things to learn from me. And I always think a mastermind is collaboration of brilliant minds. Ultimately, my group turned into 16 people. There were 12 men and 4 women. The 4 women that came back after I had asked them earlier and said, hey, you really did this thing. And for 7.5 years, I never missed 1 month of meeting. There was anywhere from 1 to 11 people that came every month. We met for 4 hours in my home. I opened my home and we shared how much we made, and we shared who said yes to us and who said no, and how to have a better website and a better book and whatever. And I'll always be grateful to that group. And I miss them because I moved to Florida, but collaboration and not stopping because someone says no to you, and believing in yourself enough that that person really did crush my spirit. I still just knew, I had a knowing that I had a message to share with the world. And so I love, Natalie, that you have created this community of collaborators, of conversations, of women who aren't threatened by other women's success, but instead cheer them on and cheer them forward. And me succeeding doesn't take away from you. It actually allows me to invite you along. And that is one thing. Unfortunately, I still on a regular basis, and unfortunately more often women than men, hear about bosses that are female and they're pushing female employees down. And I'm like, and it's always about insecurity. When we believe in ourselves, you are not a threat to me. You being a millionaire makes me happy for you. I am cheering you on rather than, well, why does she get it? No, that's brilliant. So keep going, seek community. We need community. I needed people to tell me that is ridiculous and that is amazing. I needed both. Ask and keep asking and keep asking. And people say you're great at sales. I'm like, oh no, I'm great at rejection. You will get a lot of no's from friends, from clients, but it doesn't matter. Keep going if you have a message. And so that mastermind, and actually over the 7.5 years, it was probably 8 women that came for at least a year throughout, but I just kept going. I just thought, it doesn't matter. I need a community because it's very lonely speaking. It's brilliant. Lots of thousands of people in the room and then all alone. I'm back and forth. And so it can be lonely. So to be around people that understand my passion, my drive, my purpose, and the work I do really is very.
When we have those moments where we're taken off guard, and you still remember this 12 years ago. I mean, I have a few of those in my closet too that like I'm stuck, but I look at it as opportunity for us to really see what is possible and look at what you did. I mean, you were like, yeah, okay, that's fine. See you on the flip side, flippity flip side. So Annie, I think that what you're describing is the difference in what you described is that it's really easy to let that make you walk away. Some people would have gotten that notice and been like, she's right. What am I doing? Get imposter syndrome messaging and I'm not this or that. But instead you're like, no, you're not worthy of me. Let me go out and right? Because that's not kind. That is like a very mean-spirited mindset. Obviously, I don't know. And I'm glad to not know who this person is because I might call her up.
Well, and it's insecurity, right? And it's that own self-doubt. And Natalie, that's a huge transition in my career. And I certainly did have that moment of sadness is I wanted people to like me. And when you really look in the mirror and get honest with yourself, I just want them to like me. That's about ego. That's not about generosity of spirit. I'm very much like a lot of people talk about gratitude, but I am about generosity of giving wisdom, of giving kindness, of giving. That is joy for me. So when I realized I don't care if you like me or not, yes, I want to be chosen, but it's not about being liked. It's about being a contributor. It's about what I know through pain, what I know through paying, what I know through experience and time. And I could help you on your journey to shorten it or to make it more enjoyable. I want to give that. And yes, I want to be compensated, but I want to be a contributor. And so when I got over the ego piece of it's not about liking me. It's about, can I help them like themselves? So they're kinder to the next person they encounter or the next person they employ or whatever it is. And that is the power of the work that I get to do is, oh, She's not up there going, pick me. She's up there saying, pick you, pick yourself to like. Because when we do, we're kinder to fellow people that we think are competition. Instead, they're collaborators and inclusive and all of that amazing stuff. So.
And I bet, having been in Minnesota, and I'm in Chicago, I'm a Midwesterner. People know I talk about Midwest friendly all the time. And I feel like when you help people see the kindness, you can't go. I live in a very small place, Sleepy Hollow. Yes, it is a place and we take Halloween serious. But I can't go into a store without having that little small town talk and like making someone feel like they have a connection. You never know what is happening in that person's life, and they just needed some kind of connection. And what you're doing is creating those moments of connection and fostering that and encouraging that. And I have one last question for you, which you had mentioned to me about one of your books. I think it was your second book, and you shared with me about how people were reaching out and that it was life-changing. Can you describe what it was about that second book? Because you've got 8. So what was it? And what were they sharing with you about that life-changing experience?
Yeah, thank you. I live in a small town too. Fort Myers Beach is a town. And I love that feeling. It's you see people, everywhere. My second book is called Be the Exception. And that book I was writing for 20 years, and it was going to be Dumpster to Dynasty. And then I met with the publisher and she said, don't write your memoir. Teach us how to be like you. You're a teacher. You're a speaker. And I said, okay. And so Be the Exception is these 7 keys to kind of rewriting the stories that no longer serve you, being gentle with yourself as we have detours in our life, whether it's a divorce or a death or dropping out of high school or unplanned pregnancy or whatever it is, or a bankruptcy with the company. And so when I wrote it, it ended up a year later winning a national award. And I woke my husband up at 1 a.m. I couldn't go to the awards in Portland because I was speaking in Minneapolis. And if a person I didn't even know, but was a fellow speaker went, and she left me a message, and I woke him up at 1 a.m. crying. And I said, my book, he knew the awards was happening. And he said, it's okay if it didn't win. And I said, no, it won. And he said, why are you crying? And I said, I never knew or believed that I could write something people wanted to read. And beyond that, people started emailing me on a regular basis and calling and saying, you changed my life. I'm going through a divorce. Or I just got fired, or my mom just died. And I'm carrying your book with me everywhere. It changed my life. And I always say, I can't take credit for changing your life because you have to do the work. But I can take credit for giving you a guide that supported you along the way through the hard things in life that could have shut you down or defined you. I'll say disruption. Don't let your disruption define you, and soar above your circumstances. But in this book, it's really about healing your inner being. So a lot of people think I'm a therapist. I'm not. I am a coach, a certified coach, but Be the Exception is about rewriting stories that don't serve you. It's about being your authentic self with all your messy, silly, quirky parts and loving yourself anyway. And so that's my second book out of 8. And it's on Audible. I read it myself, which was immensely hard. I'm crying at parts because I grew up in a really dark, dysfunctional home. And I had to learn that everything I believed about myself was false. And then I had to figure out how to rewrite that in a way that would empower me to empower others. And that's really what Be the Exception does. Break the cycles, rewrite the stories.
Annie, we're going to have many more conversations. I can't finish with you because I have so many more things to ask. So we're going to have to do a part 2 for sure. And I'm getting teary-eyed just hearing your story. And I know that our listeners are too. If they want to find out more about you and the incredible ways that you're lifting people up, and especially women, where can they go to find you?
Yeah, there's lots of places. But right now, I love YouTube because I like to meet people with videos, as we talked about before. So just Annie Meehan, and you should be able to find me on YouTube. And I come to you at least once a week with encouragement and ideas. And I think I'm starting a talk show in there called Ask Annie Anything, like Dear Annie or Dear Aunt Me. So yeah, I think YouTube's the best place today.
Oh, that's so great. We will have that in the show notes, of course. And I'm super excited that we are going to collaborate together on our newest project. And that is our turnkey speaker packages. You'll be one of our keynotes. So stay tuned for when we announce the date and all the things and all the details to our listeners for that. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity, Annie, to have you on the show. It's been a delight, and I can't wait to see what happens this year for you. I know it's going to be amazing. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me and just collaborating and inspiring. I appreciate you.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. Our program today is sponsored by HerCsuite Turnkey Speaker Packages. We're solving an unmet need of planners and companies trying to find speakers for their women programs and having not enough time, reduced budgets, and stress around planning. We have everything ready to go, ready to attend. All you have to do is choose your package and hit send. I invite you to learn more at HerCsuite.com and find out about Annie's program, as she's going to be one of our keynote speakers this year for our turnkey speaker packages. Find out more at HerCsuite.com. And as always, if you found this episode helpful, I would be so grateful if you would share it with a friend or colleague and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. Keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.